It's wonderful that I'm able to invite John Price here, so please give him a big hand. I believe John Price is an extraordinary filmmaker. He's been in Rotterdam a couple of times already with some of his films. What he does, he really works analog with 16 and 35mm, and he does the whole process. He keeps everything really close to himself, very personal. And he develops the films, everything in his basement. His files is stuck there, I guess. You can see the three files. Wow. Yeah. And that's a very special thing. The things he films most the last 10 years is his family. And one of the things as well, that the family is here. You can believe it, but they're sitting there, so please welcome them. They are the superstars. Yeah. Perhaps you'd like to say something about what we're about to see.
Sure. I just wanted to thank the Zolo gang for bringing me here with their own material. It's always special to be able to see them in this context, you know. Like maybe next week there'll be a Schwarzenegger film here, so it's really something special to actually be able to see basically my home movies that I make, as everyone said, very close to myself. I have the cameras around the house, and if something's going on outside, I'll go to shoot it. If my daughter's doing, monkey bars, I'll shoot it. Depends on, the lights. It's all about, the light and life and really simple moments, really. What was I gonna say? I mean, the film's, it's two things going on. It's definitely the texture of the material, and also life. So there's kind of two things that over time I kind of understand, like that's what's happening. Like there's a texture, a surface texture, and then there's a thing behind the texture, or in front of the texture, or playing with the texture. As content, it's not content like actors, hitting marks and speaking lines, and so yeah. I mean, I think the last thing I want to introduce the musicians who are going to be playing, but the last thing I sort of want to talk about is yeah, just trying to leave the experience open, so not having any particular type of narrative, or something. It's kind of open to the audience to kind of just experience and not really try to make too much narrative sense of, really, because they're more like paintings or photographs, or that's the way I work. Like a still photographer would take photographs of his family. So hopefully, that'll be clear when I think you see the films. But when Erwin asked me to come, I had quite a lot of silent work on the program, and I was like, I'd really like to work, with some sound artists, either local or from Ljubljana, or I had it in my mind, like there's a series of films I'm doing based on just water and the sea and being by the sea, and I thought it'd be great because we're in Zola to have musicians interpret these films. So I sent Erwin a preview DVD, and then he kind of passed it on to the festival people, and they found Elvis and Paraday. Elvis was my first contact, and we haven't had that much contact, but he saw the films, and basically I said, just all you need to do is watch the movies, and whatever comes, I'm totally open to you kind of figuring out how they should be, or what sound should go with that, and what instrument, or whatever. And so Elvis is been collaborating with Paraday, who's an artist, an amazing painter. He does sculptural work, he does video work, he does sound work, he does, yeah, they're both incredible. Just I've only been meeting them for what, three days now. I went over a couple nights ago, and they sort of did a performance based on what I'd given them, and it was just like, yeah, don't change a thing. Like, it's perfect. So they'll be interpreting four short films that we talked about. I mean, we can have more of a discussion at the same, because it's like,
No, but the good thing is to know that many of your films, they blossom in silence.
yeah.
It's another experience to add sound to it, not necessarily, but I'm very curious as well.
Yeah.
I've seen the C series a couple of times in different environments. In Rotterdam, we also had a local musician with it. It's completely different now.
Yeah.
You shoot a lot of material. You call them rolls, camera rolls, of course.
Yeah.
And when do these rolls start to become films, actually?
It kind of depends. Like the larger movie was I got this Russian camera, this 35mm camera on eBay, and I just wanted to like experiment with that for a year. So it's like I took 100-foot rolls, which are 1 minute long, and I just load the camera and run, you know, whatever's going on. I do time lapse and rewind it and then expose it, and it was just like a series of experiments. And so like I felt like I did a whole year of that. You know, seasons changed, and I thought, okay, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just put that one together, kind of thing. And the early ones, the C-series ones, the first films, they're just like one roll from one day from, you know. So it's some of them are easy. Some of them just exist as their own thing, and other ones sort of I try to find a structure for them in a larger context. But
It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
yeah, and so there's a lot of older, like a lot of rolls of film, and some of them are really old when these guys were really little, and they're not
Yeah.
ready to be part of another film yet. So
Yeah.
they just sort of they're there,
Yeah.
accumulating the weight of history when these guys are growing older. And,
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. I mean, see what happens.
You project them at home as well,
No,
occasionally?
not really.
No.
No, they sit.
These are the moments.
For some reason, yeah, they become the moments. I used to show these at home more. Like I used to have 60, I have a 60mm projector, and I take a look sometimes.
Mm.
But now with printing, it takes more time. It's more labor intensive, and so I usually I'll have the film scanned, the negative scanned, and I'll look at them. It's really, I'm conflicted about the whole experience of digital because it opens a whole other discussion. Watching them on a television screen is completely different than doing it this way. So it's kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And watching them digitally, I get a sense of, okay, well maybe this roll can go somewhere with this other stuff, but then I'll put it away for a while and then show a roll that, that means
Yeah.
something, and then those rolls will be put together.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions for John?
Yeah.
He's here
I'm here.
for all of us.
It's a long one.
It's a long one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I noticed that some of them are signed John Price and some of them are just signed Price.
yeah.
Is that because the Price ones are more like a family effort?
No, it's arbitrary. I don't know. I'd say you make a title card and then you shoot it on I shoot them on an animation stand, and it's like when I make the title card, it depends. Like there's no, I don't know. There's no conscious decision. Probably just leave it alone. They'll be just movies.
I just wondered if it's also not conscious. But a lot of time you move the camera instead of from left to right to left. You move it
down.
from up to down.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sort of started when I started shooting Super 8 film. It was just kind of a natural way to have a
Okay.
shot, have a beginning and an end. That way, yeah. I don't know. It's just something I've done a lot. It feels right. It's a rhythm. It's a rhythmic thing.
So you have this basement full of film stock, all these cans and whatever, all these different, outdated.
Some people have wine, have film. You can see that's the whole thing. Different films, they change over time. They're not what Kodak engineers expect, and that's what I don't like expecting. Anything, I just kind of, I wonder what this is going to do this time.
Yeah, you grab it and you don't know anything about it.
Well, I kind of know if it's color, black and white, and how old it is. I mean, the first film, some of the film expired in 1968, I think,
Yeah.
and it just, you try it. I have a roll of that. I'll try it and see what happens. And
Yeah.
It's glowing, kind of grain.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that experience. What's going to happen?
You ever tried new stock?
I have a bunch of new stock, and I usually I'll save it for, I shoot video clips for people sometimes, and other documentaries for other directors, and I'll use just stuff that I don't really think is going to be that interesting. It's still motion picture film, so I know something is going to happen, but it's not going to be that. So, yeah.
Make interesting video clips as well with this stuff.
I guess. I mean, that's what happens. People see this and they go, okay, maybe you can apply it to something else. And music, I like working with musicians. I mean, it's a nice texture to work with. It's a nice material to kind of open to interpretation. Like an instrument has a specific texture, so does the material. So. Yeah. Hi.
What about your beginnings? How come that you became so interested in working in analog technique?
Well, I started photography when there weren't really any digital cameras around. Yeah, and I just got really into photography, still photography. I was going to university and I was studying business, and I wasn't very interested in business, and I had a darkroom in where I was living, in this residential building for all these students. There was a darkroom, and I much more interested in the darkroom than I was in studying. So I just started. It was free paper and chemicals, and I just, I had a little camera, and I went out during the day and shot pictures, and then processed them by night. And then I really, I love a big lover of cinema, dramatic film, European cinema, American independent cinema, back in the '70s, and I really wanted to try making John Waters like exploitation, weird little Super 8 films, and so I kind of realized that the material I was using in my still camera was exactly the same as Super 8 film, and so just because it was a natural progression to start experimenting with processing Super 8 film, and it just opened like, wow, you can actually process this stuff by hand. I didn't have to go to a laboratory. It was really liberating. So yeah, the analog thing, and I just kept on doing it because it just made the most sense, and I really love the texture material. And I'm shooting digital video for other people, for other directors, but it's very, it's not the same thing. It's not the same process, so for documentaries and other things.
And structure-wise, do you always, do you ever start with some preconception or some pre-idea, or you work mainly with the material that you yourself produce first?
Yeah. Well, in 16 millimeter, the rolls are 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. So the first films are all around 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. So it's all of it's done in the camera, basically. And so that determines the structure. And in the last film, the rolls are 1 minute long, so that sort of determines the structure. So I don't really like cutting into the material. I just like letting it exist from the camera. I think, like the very first film that's one of the more recent films, and I'm trying to just sort of get a sense of what 2 minutes and 40 seconds is like to kind of use as a structure. I find that really resonates with me personally more than trying to cut stuff up too much. Earlier films are much more constructed, so it depends on the material. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of editing. I mean,
I'm not just speaking of editing, but also in how much do you prepare before shooting?
Well, I mean, for example, 2 weeks ago I was in Detroit, and the only preparation was I have a camera, I rented a bicycle, I have some film and a sound recorder, and I bike away and whatever. I just knew I wanted to shoot in that city, and so whatever would happen. So that's sort of as much preparation as I do, really.
Okay.
I try to leave things open to see what will happen. So just reality.
Yeah, I was just wondering because the one with the hunting boy and then the hunters looks a bit more.
It's definitely
it feels a bit more narrative than all the other ones.
Yeah, for sure. And there are other ones that are sort of similar to that one too. So those are the two types of movies that I like to make, like more personal and then less personal, just kind of more exploring thematic things that I've shot one year and this 5 years later, and this happens today, and so okay, well, what about those other things that happened a long time ago? I think they might work in this. I put them together, and that's what happens. But I haven't really made one like that since 2006 around. Like, those are older. I don't know. Like, I've done more personal films lately, I think. Sort of. Like Caesar's Number 10 is another CinemaScope one that's a bit more. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, I guess that's the last one I did. That's fairly recent.
Yeah. So story to that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's 3-part structure. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Something?
Yeah.
Sure.
So before you don't usually screen the films at home, and not always. And I heard you before saying with a certain what I felt was some kind of subversive pleasure that you like to see hear screen in the theater.
Yeah, I think that developed over time when Erwin started asking me to come to Rotterdam, and I was like, wow, this is really weird. Like realizing these home movies are on the same screen as something else, and it's really a.
Yeah, so it was what I was wondering, and I'd like to ask you is if you feel like there's something like a kind of political justice when you're blowing up your film to 35 and screening also trying to screen them this kind of theater in this kind
It's
of,
two things. I think it's two things. I really love the way the material looks when there's a lot of light coming through. And so in Super 8 projection, it's not as bright. 16mm projection, you start seeing more of the texture of the material, and then 35, you really... So it was really, you know, and really that kind of inspired me to start the process of exploring blowing things up. And but I mean, it just exists as a political gesture, I think, because the industry is the way it is. And I worked in the industry for quite a while as a camera technician on Hollywood movies, and like I saw ridiculous money being wasted. I mean, you know, I make these films really cheap. I mean, a lot of times I don't get money funding. I just have film in my basement, and I like making movies. So, and I don't like waiting to make movies. I just like something's happening, so I make movies. And so, I guess as far as that goes, it's, yeah, I mean, it's political, God. I mean, it's just trying to put something on the screen that's not so constructed and artificial, maybe. And that for me is, I don't know, it's a very personal thing, so it's hard to expect people to kind of, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way to look at the process.